Okay, Be'ezrat Hashem, Naaseh v'Natzliach. I want to welcome you to another session of our Parashat Shavua learning here at Sha'arei Ezra. Baruch Hashem, Parashat Bamidbar, Sefer Bamidbar. Before we get started, I'd like to make some dedications and honorable mentions. Be'ezrat Hashem, that this class will be to the Ilui Nishmat of Shalom Dov Ber Ben Binyamin Eliyahu, a good friend of our class. Her father passed away a few days ago, and we're going to dedicate this class to his Ilui Nishmat for the entire year, Be'ezrat Hashem B'neder. Also, for Refuah Shelema for Moshe ben Mazal, Amram ben Zohara, and Daniel ben Mazal, and Bracha v'Atzlacha for all the people that are in the room, the ones that are not on a boat in the middle of Memorial Day, but are in shul and learning Torah, and to all the people that are typically on our list. Let's get started. We have a huge lesson tonight from Parashat Bamidbar, and it's going to involve only that word, Bamidbar. Tonight we're going to learn a lesson about Bamidbar. Very, very interesting how you can extract, how we can build up an entire lesson only to understand the word Bamidbar. In the Sefer Imre Noam of Rabbi Yora Michael Abadje Zecher Tzadik Livracha, he mentions something very interesting. He says that the opening line of the parasha is Vaydaber Hashem Moshe B'Midbar Sinai. The Midrash Rabbah says, Lama B'Midbar Sinai? Why did Hashem choose a desert? The Jewish people came out of Egypt. Take him to Gan Eden. Take him to a forest. Take him to a metropolis, to a city. Take him somewhere, a lush garden, somewhere. Out of all the places in God's beautiful creation, God's beautiful earth, why would He take them to a desert? So Midrash Rabbah deals with this, and it says, Lama b'Midbar Sinai, Mikan shanu chachamim b'shlosha dvarim b'nei Torah. This is to tell us that Hashem took the Jewish people all the way to the desert, all the way to Har Sinai, and give them the Torah specifically there, because the Torah is acquired in three different ways. Ba'esh, u'ba'mayim, u'ba'midbar. The Torah is acquired with fire, the Torah is acquired with water, and the Torah is acquired in the desert. So they give us the Pesukim, Be'esh minayin, v'Har Sinai ashan kulo. B'mayim minayin, gam shamayim natfu, gam avim natfu mayim. B'midbar minayin, v'Daber Hashem Moshe B'midbar Sinai. Meaning, the Rabbi gave us the sources. However, these three things are a hint that these are the three ways that a person prepares himself for the crown of Torah. Keep in mind, we're just a day away from that deja vu rendezvous, I call it. Every year we come back and we are meeting Hashem at Har Sinai for what? For Matan Torah. What is it? We show up for a gift, a free gift. Hashem gives us a free gift on Shavuot. That's what's called Matan Torah. It comes from the word matana. It's a gift. Hashem gives us a free gift. All the Torah that we're going to learn for the upcoming year is given to us on Shavuot. How big is the gift? Is it a small box? Is it a big box? Do we need a semi-trailer? Do we need a warehouse for the gift that Hashem is going to give us? How do we know? It's all according to the preparation you did the year before. However, in order to prepare for that gift, Chazal tell us over here that you have to act like fire, like water, and like the desert. Let's see. Fire. How does a person acquire Torah learning? Through the measure of fire. A person has to burn inside of him all the burning desires for the worldly pleasures, and even for the worldly pleasures that are permissible, for the mutarot. You can have ice cream, but how much ice cream, right? You can have a day off. How many days off? There's all these things, the pleasures of that are permissible, but even there you have to have control. So you have to have the fire to burn all the desires, all the physical desires, all the permissible desires, just like Chazal told us in Pirkei Avot. Kachi darka shel Torah. You want to know the way of the Torah? You know what's the proper way of the Torah? You want to really, really have a Torah experience, a Torah life experience? You ready for it? A Torah life is פת במלח תאכל ומים במשורה תשתה. Bread with salt and water. That's your menu. Sounds exciting? Well, apparently anybody who lowers his ta'avot, it suffices. Bread and salt is all I need just to get me through the day so I can go to another page, to another limud, to another halakha. And just water, I don't need no coffee with milk and sugar and cream and sodas and all these things, just water. By doing that, by lowering a person's desires and worldly pleasures, a person's able to acquire Torah on a higher level because he's emulating fire. He's burning his desires. Ashrecha v'tov lecha, and it says a person who does that, Ashrecha ba'olam hazeh, you are fortunate in this world, v'tov lecha ba'olam hazeh, and it's good for you in the next. Okay, that's one way to acquire it, by the measure of fire. The second measure is mayim. How do you acquire Torah? By resembling water. שהמים רומזים שכדי לזכות לראות את יופה של התורה הקדושה צריך להשתדל ללמוד אותם בעבדות ולא בשטחיות. If you want to see the true beauty of Torah, you can't learn it on the surface. You got to dive deep. The beauty of the Torah is how deep you go into the Torah. In other words, do you ever go to the beach? Do you ever go to the ocean? When you're in the boat, what do you see when you're on top? Waves. That's all. All you see is water on top. How much of the water can you see? Billions and billions of gallons of water. You just see the water on top. Great. What happens if you go diving inside? It's a whole other world. Fish, whales, sharks, corals, different plants, different rocks. All of a sudden, like, what is this world? It's like a whole other world. If you look at the ocean on top, water. You dig inside, it's a whole other world, all beautiful. Same thing with the Torah. You can learn it on top. Oh, Sharone Lankry is on water. Oh, the Shabbat, we have to, shut down for 25 hours. Okay, everybody knows the basic rules. That's called shitchi. You're learning it from the surface. But do you know what's the hidden meaning behind berachot and the neshamot and the tikkunim that you're doing with it? How about when you are keeping Shabbat? Do you know what's happening behind the scenes? What's the tikkunim that we're doing in this holiday and that holiday? If you dig deep, you can see the wonders of the world. Similarly is the Torah. You want to acquire the Torah? Not on the surface. Go deep. Go deep. That's where the beauty is. Finally come to what is connected to our lesson today, Midbar, the desert. You have to emulate the desert. What do you mean? כדי לזכות בתורה הקדושה, אדם צריך להפקיר ולהשפיל את עצמו לפני כולם. Well, if a person wants to acquire, to have the merit, to learn the Holy Torah, he needs to lower himself. He needs to nullify himself. And he has to make himself like nothing in front of everybody else. Now again, this is not a negative thing. Nobody's telling you to be a nobody. Not that. Meaning, deflate your ego. Let your ge'ava, not to be haughty, not to be prideful, to be down to earth, to be mushpal. כשם שהמדבר הוא הפקר וכולם דורכים עליו, כאהבת נשם שם. Just like the desert is hefker. The desert, it's a big expanse of space. And what does it have over there? Sand and sand and sand and sand. And anybody that wants to walk on that sand can walk on that sand. Anybody can do whatever they want in the desert. Similarly, a person should be like that. That it's okay, every single person can talk to him anyway and be with him anyway. It's just like he's to nullify himself. You might think that this is maybe something that is not a proper approach. It continues to say, from the pasuk from Iyov, V'chochma me'ayin timatzeh. How is the world created? Yesh mi'ayin, right? Something from nothing. Look what the pasuk in Iyov tells us. V'chochma, you want wisdom? Me'ayin timatzeh. When you nullify yourself to nothing, that's when the wisdom starts to flourish. Wow, that's when you start to discover and find chokhmah. And we see, in other words, not to take these words literally, but if you see all the successful giants of Torah have always have been humble, down to earth. Anavim, they weren't so connected to worldly things. They weren't so connected to the honor and they didn't chase the honor, they didn't chase for the, to be elevated or to be glorified. They were always humble. All they needed is their book. All they needed is the Torah. All they needed is the learning. All they needed is to eat just a little bit. And all of a sudden, we discovered like a diamond in the rough, and we said, wow, look at this tzaddik. Look at this giant of a generation, living such a simple life in a one-bedroom apartment in Israel, sitting on a wooden chair, eating bread and water, and he's one of the biggest Torah giants in the world. How? Because he acted like fire, he acted like water, and he acted like the desert.
And the desert is no distractions. It's like
Yes.
a place where
Correct.
you don't see games and rides and video machines and
It's a point that I was actually going to make at the end, but it's exactly that. Exactly that. We're going to repeat that, as a matter of fact. Now that we have this introduction to the word Bamidbar, or to the approach of the desert, let's go completely off topic. But we're still going to stay on topic. Baal Tanya says, "Shechayav Adam lichyot im hazman." We've been saying this a lot lately in this class. "Shechayav Adam lichyot im hazman," meaning a person has to live with the times. And what did he mean by that? Parashat Shavua. And we took upon ourselves to expound on it also, that what's going on right now? If we just stop right now and say, okay, what is happening right now? Well, if you think about it, we're in the spiritual envelope between Pesach and Shavuot. That's what's going on right now. There's the Omer going on, which is the time that we take our time to do character and spiritual refinement, right? Where we try to refine our midot. That's what's going on right now. We're just a few days from Shavuot to accept the Torah again, where we get a lot closer to Kadosh Baruch Hu and the Torah. And we have also Parashat Bamidbar that we're learning right now. But also, if I think about it really, really hard, you know what I realized? That it has been weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks that I'm hearing the stories of Rabbi Akiva and his 24,000 students, and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Rabbi Akiva and his 24,000 students, and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. So, Chayvim Lichyot im hazman, if I just freeze time right now and say, what is this moment right now? It's all that. So if all that is going on, that means Hashem is talking to me. Hashem is telling me, take all these layers and layers and layers of information, and there's a lesson to be extracted from this time period, and that's what I want you to learn. Now, if we do that, I'd like to start with Rabbi Akiva. Masechet Nedarim, the Gemara says that the most famous line that Rabbi Akiva is known for. "Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, ze klal gadol b'Torah." Right? Rabbi Akiva's famous motto, his bumper sticker that you put on the car. "Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, ze klal gadol b'Torah." It's a big foundation, a big yesod, a big rule, a big way of understanding the Torah is "Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha," which is don't do unto others what you don't want to be done unto yourself. Right? Do unto others like you want them to be done unto you. Rabbi Akiva himself, even though he's famously known for that, Rabbi Akiva is the paradigm, the prime example, the exemplification of a Jew that was the Ahavat Yisrael. There was no other Jew, or maybe there was, but one of the best Jews in history to love another Jew, to have Ahavat Yisrael, was Rabbi Akiva. Well, of course, somebody who loves Jews so much, what should be his famous line? As a matter of fact, I'll just throw a couple of stories in there so you can understand a little bit about Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva is famously known for what? For many stories. One of his stories is that he saw a person in the forest, naked, chopping down trees, and then he was being chased, and then he would disappear, and then he'd come back the next day. See again this person. There was like such weird imagery that he went and he followed this person and he told him, "Hey, what's going on?" So he tells him, "I passed away many years ago, and one of my punishment is that I have to chop down trees, and then these trees, the menacing angels take these trees, they light him on fire, they burn him, and then tomorrow he comes back and he has to do it again. Every day he chops trees and they burn him. And he said, why is this torment? Why do you have this tsar? He says, because my son won't say Kaddish on me. What? Your son doesn't say Kaddish? Who's your son? He told him, I used to live in this village and I used to live over here in this town. Go look for him. Rabbi Akiva went and found his son. His son was Amaretz. He didn't speak Hebrew. He didn't read or write Hebrew. He couldn't read. He wasn't even religious. And he tells him, listen, your father's in trouble. Look what's happening to him every day. Chopping down the trees, they're burning him, and he comes back the next day. There's a big, big punishment. And the only thing that's going to make this punishment go away is if he say Kaddish. He says, I'm not religious. I don't speak Hebrew. I don't care. You know what Rabbi Akiva did? Look at this Avat he said. He fasted for 40 days. In order for him to be successful at doing kiruv on this kid, on this man, he ended up going and teaching him Aleph Bet. After teaching him Aleph Bet, he taught him how to read. After teaching him how to read, he taught him how to, he taught him Torah. After teaching Torah, he taught him how to pray. After he taught him how to pray, he taught him how to say Kaddish. And one day he said Kaddish, and his father went up to heaven. You know what type of Avat he said? You have to do that. Give you another example. He was at one time Rabbi Akiva was an employee. He worked for somebody. After 3 years of working and not seeing his family, he went to his boss, who by the way happened to be his father-in-law, Kalba Savua. And he tells him, I'm going back to my family. I need money. And by the way, this boss of his was so rich. They said that all of Israel, all of Israel could stop working and he could support them for 10 years. If all Israel stopped working. Look how rich he was. Comes Rabbi Akiva, tells him, I worked for 3 years. Please, can you give me my pay? Send me home with some cows, with some horses, with some clothes, with some money. I want to come back and see my family so they can see 3 years wasn't for nothing. He tells him, I can't pay you. He says, you can't pay me? The richest man in the world can't pay me? How could it be? You don't even have a cow to give me? How could it be? Rabbi Akiva went home with nothing. A day later, his boss comes to his house and tells him, Rabbi Akiva, how did you go home? Why didn't you tell me anything? He says, I'm one of the richest people in the world. I have all these cows and I have all this money and all these things, and I'm telling you I can't pay you. What were you thinking? He says, maybe you did hekdesh for all your tzon. Maybe you took all the animals that belong to you and you wanted to donate it to Bet HaMikdash and you couldn't give it to me, and that's why you couldn't give me that's why you couldn't give me the animals. And what about the money? He says maybe you got into a financial situation and you had to lemashken, to mortgage all your money, so it belonged to somebody else, so you couldn't give it for me. So I thought maybe you didn't have any money, that you were in some sort of business deal that helped up that money, and that's why you didn't give it to me. And he says, Rabbi Akiva, it's exactly what happened. He says, I was so upset about what happened with me, I believe it was with his son, or with one of his employees, that I said that all my son is going to go for Hekdesh. And that's why I couldn't give. And in Mamash, in that day, also my business, all my money was tied up in a transaction, and I couldn't do it. He says, what Ahavat Yisrael you have to have that you can do that? That's Rabbi Akiva. Let's give you a little bit of background about him. But he's famously known for loving the Jewish people, Am Yisrael. Now, the big question, the very big question. How can the rabbi that stands for Ve'ahavta le'recha kamocha, the rabbi that is famously known to love all the Jewish people, that his main teaching in the biggest yeshiva to ever be, 24,000 students, his main teaching, what would Rabbi Akiva teach in his yeshiva? Ve'ahavta le'recha kamocha. Wouldn't that be his what he's passing on to the students? How can that rabbi with that teaching have a plague that killed 24,000 of his students? And why? Masechet Yevamot, in the 62nd page, tells us that the reason that they died, lo nahagu kavod ze bazeh, that they didn't respect one another. Makes no sense.
How can you have a Rebbe or a Yeshiva loving every single Jew, and then you have students, his students are also very big on Chachamim, but they can't respect each other?
That's the big question. That's the big question. It makes no sense. The rabbi that teaches Ahavat Yisrael, Ve'ahavta Lecha Kamocha, he's teaching how to love Am Yisrael. His students fail by not honoring one another, not respecting one another. It makes no sense. Furthermore, the Mefarshim say, if you want to understand in which way they didn't honor one another, the Mefarshim tell us that Rabbi Akiva had 12,000 zugot, 12,000 pairs, meaning his students were chavrutot. And the way that he would pair them up is one would be advanced and one would be an intermediary. And the advanced the intermediary would get a lot sharper by learning with the advanced rabbi. And the advanced rabbi would get sharpened by the good questions by the intermediate student. Right? So it was a good combination. However, the Mefarshim tells us that when the students would come up with a nuance, a chidush, they would look across the table and say, I'm on such a high level, I just got such a chidush right now, that the level that he's on, he'll never understand it. שלא חלקו כבוד זה לזה, that they didn't, לא נהגו בכבוד זה לזה, that they discounted the other individual on the spiritual level that they were on. And what did that cause? A plague of 24,000 deaths. The world would have been a completely different place if these 24,000 Jews stayed alive.
That's what divine.
Huh?
What they said, oh, I'm higher, that this one wouldn't understand the Gemara, the concept. That's amongst Devarim. You can't do that. They would know more.
They would what?
Honest Devarim.
Honest?
Honest Devarim.
So you're saying they were going over a lav?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So let's think about it now. Let's think about it. We have a rabbi that's preaching love, and we have students that are failing in respect. So how does love produce a lack of respect? Think about it. Rabbi Akiva, ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. Keyword, underline it, yellow marker, highlight it, ve'ahavta. Love. The students, what did the Gemara tells us was the result of that teaching? Lo nahagu kavod, respect, ze bazeh. So we have love versus respect. The teaching was about love, it yielded a lack of respect. Something is off. Something is off. So let's talk about these two concepts, love and respect. Let's start with love. Love is great. There's no question. I love you, you love me, we're all a happy family. Everybody loves to love everybody, right? It's the ahava. There's no question that it is the ultimate feeling that we want to feel in this world. However, love is a dangerous emotion. And why is that? Because when we love someone, we want them to match us. Usually you love somebody that is a lot like you, right? Whether it's a wife and a husband. They love each other because why? The wife and the husband, they want to agree. You know, when they get along. A marriage typically produces a lot of love when the people are not fighting. When do they not fight? When they usually agree. When there's no machloket. When there is an agreement. How do we love somebody? Let's say for children. When we tell the children to go in the way that we choose for them. I love you so much, my son. Learn this. Do that. Follow my lead. Trust me. If I didn't love you, I wouldn't tell you this. Meaning that we love people and we sort of impose ourselves upon them in order to express our love. But at the same time, we are pushing our values upon them, stemming from love. Also with friends, right? We love friends that are exactly like us, that they have the same likes, same habits, same hobbies, same political views, same sports team. It's much easier to get along with people that are the same. If you're like me, I love you. If you're not like me, it's a lot more difficult to love you. And this is expressed on all levels, in marriages, in families, in the workplace, between friends. The more you are like somebody, the easier it is to love them. The more different you are, the harder it is to love them. However, when there are relationships where love is involved, like a husband and a wife, like a parents and children, like good friends, what happens is the love forces you to impose your way, your will, your vision upon them. We'll elaborate on this. Love is a dangerous emotion. I love you so much, be like me. I love you so much, do like me. I love you so much, match me. And we see this. I'll give you an example. A husband and a wife. What do you tell the wife? Agree with me so I can love you. Why? Because it's easier to love you when I agree with you. If I don't agree with my wife, what happens? Machloket is an argument, there's a quarrel, dare we say a fight. And what do fights, what does a machloket produce? A wall, a disconnect, a distance. And if it happens often enough, animosity, hatred. Why? Because we're not connecting, right? The more we connect, the more it's easier to love. The more you disconnect, the harder it is to love. Love, oftentimes, in homes, is an emotion that people use for controlling another individual. Because they love each other, they need to control the other individual. It confines and overpowers. And typically, when people get into this overbearing love, it creates, it breaks the walls of communication. When two people don't agree, at some point, they stop to talk to one another. And there's a break in the communication because there's walls, it creates distance, animosity, and this is exactly like, I can give you a prime example of cancel culture. What's cancel culture, what we're experiencing right now? You're not like me, I cancel you. We're experiencing that on a wholesale level right now in the world. You're not like me, you're a racist. You're not like me, you're an oppressor. You're not like me, you're the problem. You're not like me, I cancel you. Why? Why? Because that's what happens when you're not the same, when you're not like me, when you don't match me, when you don't do like me. It's much easier to love somebody when you are the same. But the minute you become opposites, that is where the problem lies. Now, to elaborate on this a little bit more, 99% of marriage therapists attribute divorce to a breakdown in communications. That's all it is. They sit down the two people, they hear both of them out, and they're just looking for one thing. Where was the communication breakdown? What was the event? What was the moment? What was the reason there was a communication breakdown? And they just stop right there and they start from there. That's what they're always looking for. Where was the breakdown of communications? Because 99% of the reason why people divorce is when they, well, not saying that, no, I'm sorry. 99% is the breakdown in communication. One of the biggest reasons of why people divorce is when one of the sides, whether the husband or the wife, feel like they're not being heard. The minute they start to feel that they're not being heard, or that their opinion doesn't matter, or that their input is minimized, or their opinion is minimized, or they're discounted, they check out. It's the beginning of the end. The minute one side starts to ignore the other one's feelings, opinions, or they're not being heard, that is the beginning of the end of marriages. And other relationships too, by the way. Just marriages, since they're bound by that contract of marriage, you know, they go through that process trying to save it. but tons of relationships, friendships are ended because of the break in communication. And people just stop talking, stop texting, ghosting, whatever you want to call it. You check out. This is one way to look at love. I like to look at the other side of it. Kavod, respect. Rabbi Akiva said, "V'ahavta le'acha kamocha ze klal gadol b'Torah," that you have to respect. You have to love another Jew. It's a major foundation in Judaism, and it yielded a lack of respect. In other words, we have to rebrand that tagline, and instead "V'ahavta le'acha kamocha," we have to add something. "V'ahavta le'acha kamocha lamrot shu lo kamocha," meaning that you have to love another person even though that he's not like you. Meaning it's easy to love somebody who has the same likes and dislikes and shares the same, again, political view and sport team and all these, and cuisine or whatever it is. It's so easy to like somebody when you are the same. But the challenge is when you're not the same. Are you able to love that person? Are you able to respect that person? Are you able to have a line of communication with that person if he is not like you? Kavod, respect, is when you love someone and respect who they are as they are. I respect you. I respect you. You only pray in the mornings, you don't learn. I respect you. You learn all day long and you're like a spiritual giant. I respect you. You don't do nothing at all. I respect you. Not judging the other individual, respecting them for who they are. Especially when they don't agree with you, when they don't think like you, when they don't act like you, and you respect them and you don't cancel them. This is healthy love. Opposite views, imagine a husband and a wife, opposite views on finances. I want to spend money here, no, I want to spend money there. Okay, what do you do now? Fight, disconnect, no talking for 2 weeks? What do? We disagree about how we're going to spend our money. How about religion? Very common thing in marriages right now. The husband is Baal Teshuvah, the wife still wants to wear pants and not cover her hair and eat in restaurants. What are you going to do? Or the opposite. She's a Choseret B'Teshuvah and he's not. What do? You're complete opposites, but you're married. Disconnect, fight. How does it work? Think about marriage where they have opposite views on finances, on religion, on politics, on sport. Can you still respect? Can you still love? Or is there a breakdown in communication and there is no more respect? There's a famous story of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, we just had his Hilulah a few days ago, like Omer. Very famous story. I'll just share one with you. A famous story that's brought in Gemara in Masechet Shabbat. Ironically, on the 33rd page, Lag. And it says that one time the Tanaic rabbis were sitting together. Rabbi Yehuda ben Pedat, Rabbi Yossi ben Chalafta, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and there was another individual called Yehuda ben Gerim. And they were sitting around, and Rabbi Yehuda started to speak highly of the Romaim, of the Romans. Look at them, of how they updated the city, the roads, the bridges, the bathhouses. And Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai protested to this opinion because he was a man of truth, and he actually insulted the Romans. That everything that they did for themselves, the road is for them, the bathhouses is for them, the bridges is so they can charge taxes to cross it. Yehuda ben Gerim took those words of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and he took them all the way to the king or to the government, And the government decreed that we must kill Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai on the fact that he insulted the Roman Empire. Because of that, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and his son Elazar were on the run. And it led them to a cave where they stayed for 12 years. At the end of 12 years, they come, and we all know what happened over there. You know, they immerse themselves in the Torah, Sod. You know, we know that the Torah has Pardes, Pshat, Remez, Drash, and Sod. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is the one that brought the Sod into the world, and they were secluded for 12 years. And when they came out, imagine just coming out after 12 years of literally being like an angel learning Torah all day long, they saw a person sowing and plowing. A regular Joe, working the field. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai looks at that individual and he tells them, "Manichid chaye olam ve'oskim b'chaye sha'ah? Are you forsaking the Torah life that gives you eternity, and you're busying yourself with things that are temporary like this world?" He looks at him and he turns him, miyad nisaf. He burns him. A voice comes from the heavens and says, Yatzta bat kol. A heavenly voice came from the heavens and La'achiv olami yatzatem? You came out here to destroy my world? Chizru lema'aratechem. Go back into the cave. What happened there? What happened? Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was maybe one of the holiest people at that moment. Comes out, sees a regular Joe, and he turns him into dust by just staring at him with, like, you know, X-ray vision, X-ray eyes, or those Superman red laser beams, right? What does that look like? What does that sound like? It sounds like his teacher's teachings, right? Rabbi Akiva, ve'afta lecha kamocha. And why did the 24,000 students die? Because they didn't like somebody who wasn't like them. So Rabbi Shimon says, hey, you're not like me. You're not a Torah Jew. You're not toiling in Torah. This is who you are. He zaps him. Wait. That's how he lost the other 24,000 people. They didn't like the person that was in front of them because he wasn't like them. So Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, you're coming out here to repeat? To repeat what we just went through with the plague? What does the bat kol from heaven tells him? Go back. You're missing learning. You're missing the ve'afta hakamocha lavot shu lo kamocha. You're missing the key learning that you have to love another Jew even though that he's not like you. Love that farmer for who he is. Accept him for who he is. Rabbi Akiva and his 24,000 students, I'm sorry, the 24,000 students from Rabbi Akiva could not tolerate someone that's not like them. And because they couldn't tolerate someone that's not like them, came the plague of 24,000 people. And Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai needed an extra year in order to tolerate everyone else around him. After 12 years, he still couldn't tolerate. He was still turning people into dust for not being full-blown Torah Jews. Hashem says, no, one more year. One more year. In order for you to come out with the right understanding of this world, you need one more year to accept everyone as they are. And by the way, did Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai have a bad bone in his body? No, he just thought, what are you doing, Jew? You're not taking advantage of the Torah, of the spirituality, of the Chadut. What are you doing? You're on the wrong path. He's screaming out to him, you're on the wrong path. Not that he had a bad bone in his body, but it was a wrong approach. Wrong approach. And this is the lesson tonight. Using love as the wrong approach. Love used in the wrong way yields lack of respect. Love has a side to it that when you don't couple it with respect, it yields a lack. When you don't couple love with respect, it has a destructive side to it. Between husband and wife, between parents and children, between friends, between co-workers. I love you, listen to me. Trust me when I tell you. You have to do this. You're forcing your children to do a certain thing. You're forcing your wife or your husband to do a certain thing. Why? Because I love you. Trust me. You can't use love like that. It's more about using love and respect together to achieve a common goal. And we'll even have the magic formula tonight. I'll give you a perfect example. It's an extreme example, but it makes a point. What is the point? Love used in the wrong way yields lack of respect for another individual. We know that the fire of Torah, we just spoke about Esh HaTorah. Let's take a prime example of a Baal Tshuva, right? Who's not a Baal Tshuva? Who wasn't off the derech and came back, right? Almost every person that I know is a Baal Teshuvah. What happens when you discover God, or rediscover God, and discover the beauty of the Torah? The fire of Torah burns inside of them. Now you could take that fire and use it two ways. You could use it as a flamethrower, and just burn everyone that's in your path. And you've seen that version of the Baal Teshuvah. Shabbat, what are you doing? You can do this and you can't do that. And this is the halakha. And now you're doing, the anger that comes when another person in the house is not keeping Shabbat the appropriate way. The anger that comes with the control of the Baal Tshuva that he wants to control him. He's fighting the right fight. He's fighting for the Torah. He's fighting for God. But in the meantime, he's decimating every relationship he has in the house, with his family, with his children, with his friends, with anybody that comes to the house, using the fire of Torah the wrong way. He's burning everyone along the way. A scorched earth attitude, approach. Or you can take the fire of the Torah and warm up the house, right? Introduce people to the beauty of Torah, to the beauty of Shabbat, to the beauty of Chagim. Have patience with them. Respect which level they're at right now spiritually. They'll come around, just like you came around. 20 years, you're doing everything upside down. So, Baruch Hashem, you came back. Just like Hashem had patience with you, have patience with the people that are in your house as well. So we can see that sometimes love, it comes from a good place. I want him to keep Shabbat, don't do the wrong thing. You know what it means? He doesn't keep Shabbat, Skila, doesn't keep the holidays, Chas v'Shalom this. I'm trying to save his life. Yeah, because I love him. Yeah, but you're not respecting him along the way. When you're not respecting him along the way, it's not going to work. So what's the practical lesson, right? So what's the practical lesson from Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, his approach, from Rabbi Akiva, from his 24,000 students? What's the practical approach? For marriage, must have communication. What type of communication? Must have love and must have respect. There's no other way. Children. Our children, we feel like we own them. My child. If there's one thing that's mine, it's my boy, it's my daughter. And I'm going to tell them exactly what to do. Why? I am the boss of them. You're not a boss, you're a partner. Your wife has a share, you have a share, and God has a share. And you all have to share that soul and respect that boy's journey. Respect that girl's journey. No, he has to be like me, he has to learn Shas by 12, and he has to be a big tzaddik. And I always see a lot in shuls a lot of time. You see the kid come to the bar mitzvah, they put on him the hat. That's it. He's going to be a rabbi now. You see 6 months later, a year later, the hat is gone. Where is that 13-year-old tzaddik with a hat who was going to be the future rabbi of America? That was the father. The father put on him that costume. The kid didn't want that. He didn't respect his journey. And maybe that would have been the right thing at a different time. But at that moment, it wasn't the right time. Why? Out of love. I'm doing the right thing for you. I'm putting you on the path to be a holy rabbi. Yeah, but you didn't respect his path. Do they need to be what we want them to be? A lot of times it's not so easy. Parents, we want the best for our kids, but we ignore their path. We have to love them and respect them and know which way to navigate each child, each soul that Hashem is partnered with us. How about work? What's the practical lesson for this class for work? Are you able to work with people that have a different character than you, that are opposite character than you? Are you able to respect another individual for who they are? Do you know how to work around the differences? There's a famous quote from Bruce Lee. He always says, "Be liquid." There's no Bruce Lee. It's Bruce Lee. That was a joke, Bruce Lee. What does Bruce Lee always say? Be liquid. Why was that such a huge comment? Why was that such an impact? Be liquid. Like Chazal tell us to be like mine, because liquid fits anywhere. Liquid adjusts itself to its environment. There's no clashing. It's not like a big tree that's standing over there. Hey, you got to go through me, right? It's my way or the highway. Liquid, it meshes, it morphs itself to the environment. You have to be liquid. Don't clash. Don't bang heads. Not forcing your way or imposing views or imposing life views. Communication with respect, with the wife, with the children, with co-workers. It's the acceptance of another person, being cognizant of avoiding conflict and accepting differences. That's love and respect. That's where Rabbi Akiva's students were lacking. Lo nahagu kavod ze lazeh. They didn't respect one another. They had love. Wrong type of love. I'd like to share a life tool with you that I learned while preparing this class. It's a great tool when you have two opposite opinions, two opposite views, right? What do? Two friends, husband and wife, children, or any other scenario. How do you deal with that when somebody has a complete opposite view from you? This is something that was copy and pasted from marriage therapists, actually. An exercise that they tell the husband and the wife when they're arguing, when they don't agree, when there's a conflict, an opposition. I see it this way, you see it that way. Great, what do? First thing that you do is you let the other person know that you hear them. That everything you just said, I hear. I hear you. You even repeat what they say. That already validates them. The next thing, you say, I don't agree though. I understand what you said. I heard what you said. Repeating it validates them. And you voice your opinion. I don't agree with your stance, with your opinion, with your view. This is my opinion. This is what I think. This is what I think. It's completely opposite. Now that you understand that I heard you, and I validated you, and I've spoken my side, and I expressed to you that it's complete opposite. What do? Middle of the road, Derech HaMelech, the King's Highway. I bet 50%. You bet 50%. You don't get everything, and neither do I. I get half, and you get half, and we're both okay with that. We're both okay with getting a little bit of what we want. But when you just stand, no, this is what I want, and I'm not listening to anything else, and if it's not my way, it's the highway, there's the breakdown of communication. That's the beginning of the end. Any successful marriage must have communication, and you must give in. There's another formula. You give in one time, I give in another time. Sure, you get a full 100%, and I'll get it later on 100%, but something. There's a give and take. Middle of the road. Communication. I hear you. I understand you. I don't agree with you. Let's find a compromise. That saves marriages. That saves that saves relationships in homes with parents and children. When you validate the child to say, yes, you're right now going against what Ima and Abba want. And I understand where you're coming from, and I understand your frustration, and I understand why you want to do this and you don't want to do that. However, my experience, my research, our tradition shows me otherwise. I mean, you can try, and I'm here to help. I'm here to mentor. I'm here to direct you on the right path. But maybe just give it some more thought, my child, my son, my daughter. Give it some more thought. Let's discuss this a little bit more. Give freedom and respect for the communication, or for more communication, rather than do as I tell you. Trust me, this is the best thing for you. You don't like it, too bad. It's a totally different approach. This is something that I'm struggling with. That's me. I tell my kids, this is the best thing for you. You'll thank me later. I mean, there's only so many times you can pull that off. You literally have to respect even a child and their path, and hope that by making sense, they'll come to see it your way, which is the right way. But you can't force the right way on a person. You can't. It's like that Baal Teshuvah that's forcing his wife to cover her hair and to eat kosher and to go to the thing. She's not there. Forcing it is not going to make it happen. It's a different approach that's going to make it work. At this point, we understand a little bit better one side of love and another side of respect, and how love and respect need to interact with one another in a home, in a workplace, or any sort of a social connection. And we learn this from what's going on around us today, right? Rabbi Akiva, the students, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Why is this so important? Why is this so important? Well, we come full circle to the beginning of the class. We said we're going to learn only one word in this week's parasha. Which word is it? Bamidbar. What's the hint in the word Bamidbar? We are on a journey right now to Matan Torah. But notice, any journey to a spiritual elevation, to go to the next level in your chaniyut, what precedes it all the time? Every time you want to get closer to God, what do you have to first work on? Ben Adam lechavero. Before you can go to Ben Adam lamakom, what do you have to do? Ben Adam lechavero. And right now, just a few days before Matan Torah, what are we dealing with? Like we said, the lesson of Rabbi Akiva's students, the lesson of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the Pirkei Avot, the ethics of our fathers, all ways to sharpen the sefirot of the Omer, the character refinement, all in order to improve our Ben Adam lechavero. In order for what? That Hashem sees, oh, you're working, you're utilizing this book. This whole book is how to interact with God and people. You are working on how to work with people? Great. I'll give you the gift of interacting with God. So we go back to the word Bamidbar. What is Bamidbar? Cut it into two. Bet medaber. Bet is two, medaber. When two people are talking, when two people are interacting, how should they be? Like the desert, like the midbar. How? They have to be lowly. They have to be shafel. They have to be like nothing. They have to nullify themselves. Why? Because there's communication. When you're standing like a tall tree, it's my way or the highway. When you're standing right there and you're fighting and you're saying, no, trust me, you must go my way, you're wrong, and if you don't go my way, I'm not talking and we're fighting around. You're not acting like the desert. Bamidbar, bet medaber, when two people are talking, how do they have to take? The approach of the desert. Lowly. Nullify yourself. Not only that, the desert is desolate. The desert is empty. The desert is flat. We learn from that in conversation you have to humble yourself. There's no ego. Flatten yourself. And to strengthen the point that Joseph said, what happens in the desert? There's no distraction. You have full attention. That's why Hashem took us not to Gan Eden, and not to a forest, and not to a city, and not to the most beautiful mountainous areas in the world. He could have taken us to so many beautiful areas. Why did he take us to the desert? To have our full attention. No distraction of anything. Not of a population, not of people, foreign influence, not even anything. Full attention. It's us and God. That's why Bamidbar, Bet Medaber, where two people are talking, act like the desert. Flatter yourself. No ego. And full attention. No distraction. It's all about communication with respect. This is the lesson of today. This is what we're able to extract from the time that we're in right now. And why Bamidbar? Why is it 2 times Bet, 2 Medaber? Because there's 2 things going on also. We're going to speak. Before you can reach any sort of a spiritual height, like we said, or any closeness to Hashem, first you got to do 2 things. First you got to talk, Ben Adam Lechavero. And then secondly, Ben Adam Lamakom. There's 2 things going on right now. And if a person is not putting their effort into Ben Adam Lechavero, you have nothing to do on Shavuot. Hashem turns a blind eye to you. Where do we see this? Where do we see that there's this work of Ben Adam Lechavero and Ben Adam Lamakom? We see it here, between Pesach and Shavuot. And we see it somewhere else, between Rosh Chodesh Elul and Simchat Torah. Pay attention. We're on a 49-day journey, and the 50th day is the climax, right? From Pesach up until 7 weeks later, right? On the 50th day, Shavuot. What do we do in those 49 days? Ben Adam Lechavero, Ben Adam Lechavero, refining our midot, refining our Pirkei Avot, refining our our character, learning from the students of Rabbi Akiva, learning from Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, learning the approach of communication with respect, love and respect coupled together. That's what we learn. And once we learn that lesson, once we internalize it, the 50th day is what? Hashem says, now we can talk. Where do we have a similar journey? The month of Elul, the Teshuvah season. From Rosh Chodesh Elul, we work. We know that you can't show up to Yom Kippur and ask for forgiveness from HaKadosh Baruch Hu if you didn't ask for forgiveness from who? Ben Adam Lechavero. So what do we do from Elul to Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur? We're working on what? Ben Adam Lechavero, Ben Adam Lechavero. Because once we clear up our interactions with God's other children, then Hashem says, now I can deal with you. But you can't hurt my children and expect me to have a relationship with you. You have to have a good relationship with my children in order to have a good relationship with the Father. And what is the culmination of that? What is the 50th day from Rosh Chodesh Elul? Simchat Torah. What's Simchat Torah? We dance with the Simchat Torah. Finally, we got to this point. We fixed Ben Adam Lechavero. We fixed Ben Adam Lamakom. And now what? We're dancing with the Torah. 2 parallel 49s and a 50th day. 49 days of the Omer, 50th day Shavuot. 49 days from Elul to Matan Torah, to Sukkot. And then the final day is Matan Torah. Same work. Same spiritual work. Ben Adam Lechavero, then Ben Adam Lamakom, gift of Torah. Dancing with the Torah.
49 years until Yoga, which is jubilation.
Amazing. The cherry on top, Yosef. Chazak. 49 years of the Yovel, which is called jubilation. Chazak u'baruch. For me, this was a gift, this lesson. I'm a married man. Baruch Hashem, I have children. I have many relationships. And this lesson of how to use love properly, because love gets so much hashivut in this world. And it does, but it's not channeled properly. And just adding the chesed of ahava, but the respect of gevurah, putting those 2 things together, that's the tiferet. That is the king's highway, the middle of the road. That is the approach, the Jewish approach, the successful Jewish approach, is to love somebody with respect. And that opens up the line of communication. that breaks all the blockages. That allows the flow. In the bare minimum, you'll get half of what you want. In the bare minimum. After a certain time, you'll forego and give her everything that she wants. And in the same token, she'll forego and give you everything that she wants. That doesn't happen when you are. That does not happen when you are clashing with one another. And even if that we started the lesson with Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha ze klal gadol b'Torah. Even though the Rabbi Akiva is so famously known about implementing this motto or this action in Am Yisrael, Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha ze klal gadol b'Torah, I would take it and say Derech Eretz kadma l'Torah. Derech Eretz, being respectful to another human being, precedes Torah. Because what? There's nothing uglier than a religious Jew that has no respect. There's nothing uglier than a person that spends his entire day learning Torah but has no manners, has no proper way of interacting respectfully with other people. Devorah Aluf wrote it in Shabbat Derech Eretz Torah. Very good. She just added to what we just said right now. And sometimes we look so high. How do we get so spiritually elevated? You know how? When you go low. When you go down to the basics. You know what's the basics? Why don't you try to master Derech Eretz Kadma LaTorah? Why don't you start with that? Why don't you just try to master Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha that has a combination of love and respect? You know, sometimes we try to learn these pages of Gemara and this Zohar and this Tikkun and that Tikkun. Great, amazing. Don't stop. Continue. But the basics of how to interact with another person in a level of respect, basic Derech Eretz, will lead Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. And the key point over here, Lamrot shu lo kamocha, even though that he's not like you. And that's the challenge. And that's where most people are fail. And this is where I'm grateful for this lesson. And Be'ezrat Hashem, that we'll be able to internalize this lesson and practice it with our loved ones, with our friends, with other Jews. And would that be the path to the final Geulah? Because the reason why we are experiencing the hardships and Mashiach is not here is the division and separation and conflict, which is the complete opposite. So imagine if we just take today's lesson and apply it, we're one step closer to Mashiach, one step closer to the Geulah, because this is the formula to success. שיתו לבכם נחלה, פסגו אמנותיה למטה ספר ואחרות. שהשם מברך אתכם, ישמח אתכם. Thank you for listening.